Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to open up my Bafang G62 1000-watt geared hub motor, and I'm going to look inside, get some grease in there, basically just do a little bit of maintenance, see how it's looking in there, and then put it all back together. And so I have already taken off the gears, the cassette, as well as the disc rotor. On this side, took out the 6 bolts that hold the disc rotor in. And then so to open this puppy up, we've got these 6 machine screws around the edge of this cover, this faceplate on the disc side. From what I understand, these are usually extremely tight when you get the motor, or they should be extremely tight. And people say that you might need an impact driver to get these things off. But what I'm finding on mine is that these things are just like barely hand tight at this point. So I don't think that I'm gonna need an impact driver at all. Some of them are tighter than others. Like a couple of them are just like hand tight. This one seems pretty tight over here. That one is just barely tight. This one, that wasn't tight at all. So it seems like after a while, these things can kind of start to loosen up on their own. And then, so this is the one that's the tightest, but it wasn't tight at all. I could get it off just with the 3mm Allen key and just like very light amount of hand pressure. I'm gonna undo all those screws. So they're about that long. Looks like there's about like 10mm of threads or something, maybe. Just guessing. I'm not for sure. So we're gonna continue taking all of these out so that we can open this puppy up. I've been putting this off for a while because I'm always just like busy riding my bike and stuff. And sometimes when things are gonna take a little bit of effort, you're kind of like, oh, I don't feel like doing that, but this is actually going pretty smooth. I thought I would have to like use an impact and like everything would be torqued on there really tight, but we gotta come over here onto the drive side. There's these little lock nuts that kind of go on here, and what I'm noticing on mine is that it seems like they're already loose, like they had already started to kind of loosen off of there. You have to take the cassette off of here to get at this thing, and then mine is just kind of like loose. I started twisting it to loosen it, but there's like, it started, let's see. Okay, so I got a couple adjustable wrenches here. I'm gonna hold the axle with this one, and then I'm gonna use this other one on that locking nut to loosen it up. There's kind of a lot of resistance when I'm screwing this off, so I'm just gonna get a little bit of grease on the threads here because it just doesn't feel smooth. Okay, so now that I put some grease in there, it's coming off a lot smoother. There we go. I think it was just kind of gritty. There's like some dirt and like grit and stuff in the threads. And now that I put a little bit of grease in there, it's helping out a little bit. Sometimes it helps to turn things by hand just because you can get a better feel for like what's going on. Sometimes when there's some resistance, like you don't just want to like power through it, because you can strip threads and damage things. So that was just one of those guys. It looks like there's another one I'm gonna have to take off. It's down there too. Okay, so this one is just like, this one's just loosey-goosey. It's coming out really easy. Don't even really need to hold the axle on this right now. A little bit of resistance right here. Might do the same thing. Ooh, man, that felt tight. Ugh. Okay, now it's starting to feel better. So it was just kind of like felt really tight around a couple of threads right there, but then now it's just coming straight off. So there's this thing that I am calling a locking nut. I don't know what it's called. And so here you can see what it looks like. It's like there's just a couple of these nuts covering up, must be a bearing or something right there. So that's it for this side. Now that we've got these guys off, the axle should be able to slide out the other way. So the next step is to take that cover, the faceplate cover thing off of the opposite side. The weight of the wheel popped the motor out on its own, but if you have to get the motor out, you could thread a nut onto the other side of the axle down here and then just kind of give it a good clonk, and this part of the motor should slide out this way. So let's see. Looks like this cover is sliding, but like the motor itself. Okay, here we go. So now we're pulling it out. We're pulling this puppy out. Here she comes. Oh, there it is. There is the inside of the shell. There are some chunks in there. There's some chunks. We gotta clean some of that stuff out. What is that? Interesting. So the gears, this metal ring in there with the gears, that is still glued to the outer shell. That's not moving around at all. I've seen some people have them get loose. So here is my, ooh, that looks gross. So here's the G62. Here's the planetary gears, and then we got the motor core. There's like some goopy stuff kind of running around this whole clutch assembly. I don't really want to touch it. Okay, so we've got a couple cleaning jobs on our hands. We gotta clean the inside of this, because there's chunks. I don't know if you can see in there. There's like chunks kind of down in there. So we'll have to clean all that out. And then this guy needs some grease. It's just like, there's not much grease going on. Here's the planetary gears. So this thing spins around 5 times every time the wheel goes around. It's a 5-to-1 reduction. Can this come off? Is this something that can come off of here? Let's see. I'm not sure if this thing just pulls off this clutch assembly. Can this pull off? Or does that, it might just pull off, but I'm gonna set it down for now and we'll come back to that. So I'm just gonna try and wipe this thing a little bit. So that it's not so messy. I don't want to contaminate it and like really get like any additional stuff in there. But I'd also like to clean it a little bit so that I'm not getting all kinds of dirty just from handling it. there's kind of grease like all over the place everywhere. Alright guys, so then this side cover seems like it can slide this way as well, but it's got the motor cable in the way that's coming out of the axle, so I don't think that this, I think it would be a pretty tight squeeze to, let's see. So I'm just kind of looking inside of it at the copper windings. I'm just kind of taking it off as far as I can get it without taking the whole thing apart. The copper doesn't look like black or anything, like it's cooked. So I think I'm gonna leave this, I don't think I'm gonna take this off all the way because it's kind of a pain to get this motor cable through there and get that piece off. And there's not anything that I really need to do in there. That's just kind of like the motor core. So I was just kind of looking at the hall sensors and everything in there. But we're gonna leave that piece on. Alright, so I just turned on some more lights in hopes that I can come down in here and hopefully get a good shot of the markings on those bearings. So hopefully you can kind of get a good read on that in case you gotta get another bearing. And the bearing feels fine. I thought there was some play in the motor, like in a bearing or something, but I think it was actually how the locking nuts on the end of the one side of the axle and then the nuts that were holding this whole cover on, like they were a little bit loose, and I think that's where the play was. It's just like the cover and then the nuts that were like holding the piece, the motor together. Because this bearing, like that thing feels pretty smooth. It feels fine. I do want to clean out all this stuff. There's foreign chunks in here, so I'm gonna try and clean this out. So I don't know how good you guys can see in there, but what I thought was like chunks of dirt. I don't know if you can see in there, but like it looks like there's chunks in there. But if I get that stuff, if I get that stuff out, it looks metallic, but when I get it out, it's actually like some kind of grease or something. So let's take a look here. So I don't know if the camera is gonna focus on this screwdriver, but there's some stuff in there, and it looks like chunks, but when I smush it down, it seems like there's some kind of white, what is that, like a lithium grease, but then this other stuff that I thought were chunks of metal actually like seems like it's some other kind of grease, like it's smushing. So it's all like kind of a grease stuff. First I'm just gonna wipe it. I'm gonna wipe as much as I can just with a towel. So hopefully here's another good look at the bearing and the information on there. Let's try and angle this up at the light so we can see. Alright, so then the one little final annoying bit about this is that there's going to be some grease stuck kind of in these teeth potentially. I mean, he's gonna have like a pick or something that with like a sharp pointy end. You know, whether it's like a dentist pick or like a tooth pick or floss pick, whatever. You're gonna need something to pick out all of these little goopy things. I guess you probably don't have to. I'm just gonna quickly go through and try and get out as much of it as I can before I put different grease in there. So there's some lettering on the clutch assembly here. It says Bafang RM G062.1000.DC 2021-0513 is what it says on the clutch assembly right here. So it appears as if the clutch assembly for the 1000-watt G62 motor, it's the same as the 750-watt motor. Alright, because that's what it says right here, G62 750. So if you gotta buy a new clutch assembly for your G62, it's gonna be this one right here. And it's going to be the same whether it's the 750 or the 1000. So these teeth on the clutch assembly, the teeth on the gears of the clutch assembly do have kind of like some goop down in them. So this is going to be another one of those painstaking jobs where you got to take some kind of like a pick and then try and clean out all the stuff out of there. Okay, so you need some kind of a pick. And this is like really chunky. Huh. It's gonna take some work to get that out of the teeth of all of these gears. And my plastic toothpick is not working as good. I might have to find something else. Like, oh, that works better. So I found a flathead screwdriver that kind of works better for this part. You probably don't want to use anything too sharp or use too much force. Because this is nylon. Again, I don't know how much this really matters to get all of this stuff out of here. Like, you mainly want to go through and make sure all of the teeth of the nylon gears are still good, and like there's no like little chunks of nylon stuck that have broken off and are kind of like going around grinding in there. So I'm just going through here. My nylon gears still seem pretty good. And so I'm not really doing like a complete, thorough, 100% deal here. We're just doing like the 80-20 rule, where we get 80% of the results with 20% of the effort. And that is my philosophy in life. There's like a good amount of goop in here that I'm just gonna try and clean out of there. I'm not sure how this... You should be able to take this clutch assembly off of here, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that comes off. I thought it would have a C-clip right here, but I don't know how that comes off. Or if you can... I'm really not sure. Looking down in there though, and I don't really see any like chunks of anything or anything funky going on. So it seems like it's probably okay-ish. And I would just like to get some more grease in there. So I'm just gonna kind of wipe off as much of this mess as I can. It seems like there was some kind of like lubricant or grease or oil or something, whoops, on the axle, and it seems like I can kind of see the grease stuff that was on the axle here, and I see it inside of here, like on the side of some of these nylon gears. It's just an observation. Okay, so cleaning all that shit out of here. Just kind of feeling just kind of feeling this bearing on this side. It still feels good. Still feels pretty smooth. I don't think there's anything wrong with the bearings. We can only partially see the motor windings from here, but they look okay. I don't really see any like black burnt up windings in there at all. Alright, so now I'm gonna put some grease in there. I got this Mobile SHC Mobilith SHC 100 synthetic grease, lithium complex, and it's red. This stuff is a little bit spendy. I know there's other stuff that's cheaper, like red and tacky or whatever you want to call it. There's cheaper options. This is the stuff I have. So all I'm gonna do here, you don't need to overdo it, just kind of get grease going into the teeth, like go around here. Just want to kind of fill in the teeth. Doesn't need to be too crazy. Alright, so I took a bunch of grease, kind of got it into the teeth over here. And we're just gonna... Okay, so I greased that up. Just gonna wipe off a little bit of the excess around the edges here. Alright, so I've got the teeth of this ring in here all greased up. Alright, so now we've got our planetary gears over here that we want to get some grease on. I didn't clean my planetary gears as thoroughly as I cleaned it inside of the teeth on that ring on the hub shell, but I just wanted to get some more grease in here. So with this, like, since we already have that grease on that other piece, we can just kind of like lightly grease these guys. You don't want to get it all over. So you can see how I put that grease, just a little bit of grease in there, and then you can spin the planetary gears around and it kind of greases itself. So I'm just going to add some more. Get that nice and greased up. Now that I got some grease on the teeth of the gears, you can kind of spin this piece around and then wipe off any of the additional grease that's kind of like coming off of the gears and going on the side here. And also, if there's any like on the side of these planetary gears, you can get it off of there. Okay, so I've got the gears, the nylon gears lightly coated with the grease. I've got the teeth on the inside of this hub shell greased up. And that's pretty much what I wanted to do, was just grease it up. So I am going to grab this and get the motor going back through here. Okay, let me get it in there and then kind of just a little bit till it goes in there. Okay, so before I close everything up, so I haven't screwed the motor cover back on yet. I'm just kind of spinning it to see how it's feeling and sounding. Sounds like a lot of grease. I might have put too much in there. Let's see. We pull this back out. What does it look like now? Okay, so too much grease, I think. I'm gonna wipe some of that out. So I'm just gonna keep doing that, guys, until the grease seems about right and the grease isn't like going all over the place like this. So we can just keep spinning our planetary gears around, and then the grease will kind of build up if there's too much of it. So I'm gonna keep getting the excess grease out of here, and just I cleaned up some of that grease a little bit, and we're just getting it back in there. Okay. Twisting the axle around a little bit. I can still hear a lot of grease. I'm just gonna keep doing that until it seems like there's not too much grease. See what it looks like now. I think that should be fine. There's a little bit of excess grease in there. That's not too bad. It'll kind of like lubricate itself over time. I don't think that's going to hurt anything. So then we're going to put this back in here and call this good. Twist the axle to get that back in here, line up these holes, and we'll get, oh man, we're gonna have to, back on this side, we've got to get our two little screw guys going back on. I'm gonna wipe them off first because they're all gritty and gooped up. These guys basically go back on here. You can use an adjustable wrench to get this one on. So keep threading it past that point of resistance here, and then get that going in there, and then you got our adjustable wrench, and we can tighten that on. That, get my other wrench. I'm gonna hold the axle with one of these. I just tighten up this lock ring with the adjustable wrench while holding the axle. And I think that should be good. It doesn't need to be like unbelievably tight, and you don't want to mar it up like I just slightly did. But so I think we're all back together. I don't feel like any play back and forth at all, so everything should be fastened back together here. Now I'm gonna get all these bolts back into this little side cover thing. So I got all the bolts back in. I'm just gonna kind of tighten them up in the star pattern to finalize things. That wasn't bad at all. You just gotta take some screws out. Might have to take your brake rotor off, take your cassette off, take your wheel off your bike. A little bit of work, but once you have access to the motor, it's just a bunch of screws that you take out and wipe it down, put some more grease in there. Eventually you might have to replace some of the nylon gears, but that whole clutch assembly with the 3 gears in it, I think you can get for like $50 to $75. Or else if you just need one of those gears, the nylon gears, they're like $10 or $15 a piece. So, alright guys, so that was the maintenance on my G62. We opened it up, cleaned it up, greased it, put it back together. So I should be all set to ride this motor for another good year or so. And that's about it. It's not bad at all. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that jazz. I'll see you guys next time.